Ryan, in your past coaching experiences, and I imagine this will come up the longer you're at Maryland, what about the idea of differentiation? Let's say a junior, he's finally got that voice off his shoulder, and they started recruiting somebody that is potentially going to take their spot as a freshman. Are the same tools in place to help manage that stress of differentiation of a dude as they're recruiting to improve the team and take away your spot?
Yeah, so I think it's got to be understood about being uncomfortable for us, right? So we always talk about the coach's job. Our players, we try to get them from the strength staff perspective. We always try to get them to understand when we get good players that come in here, that's a good thing. It's going to drive competition. It's going to drive you. It's going to keep you uncomfortable and keep you growing and keep you wanting to develop and keep you wanting to get better. But if we don't bring good talent in, we don't bring good players in, well, that keeps you comfortable, and it doesn't ever really get us better as a program. So I think what's happened for us is being able to see those guys work together, being able to see that older guy. It's happened with us with I'm thinking about one of the guys we have specifically right now where, he plays at a position where the older linebackers have taken him under their wing and they show him, and he's really good. And he's made them better, and they know it. And so I do think that helps, and I think it's about how you create an environment where those older guys can help the younger guys despite how good they are at what they do. It's got to be understood that if they got you – if I'm here in 2019 and they got you here in 2020 at my same position, then that means that they must think that you're going to be better than me in the long run. That has to be understood. That's a coach's job to drive the competitive culture in the program. And if that's not understood, then you're in the wrong place.
And I also think as a player, if a younger dude can come in as a freshman and beat you out, you probably shouldn't be playing anyway. Yeah. I remember in the NFL, they would draft young guys and make you worried about it. I'm like, I'll teach him everything. And I was more than happy to always work with the young guys, on technique and this. And I'm like, if you can do it better than me, come take my job because I don't deserve to be here. And the day that I don't, I'll be out of it. And it got to 10 years and I couldn't do the job I wanted to, then you end up leaving. But I think there's always this fear that so-and-so is going to come in. I have rarely seen, and this is, an offensive defensive line thing. I know it's probably maybe a little bit different with maybe a quarterback or a receiver or maybe some of the skill positions. But it's pretty rare for an 18-year-old kid to come in and have the physical maturity. I mean, you remember you showed up as a freshman. I remember looking and there was I was second string or third string. And I remember the dude who was the starter, he had a full beard and a chest hair.
And shaved that morning?
I didn't even own a razor when I went to college. And I remember he shaved and 5 days later he had that beard back. And I was like, oh my God. Right? This dude benched, I watched him incline 450 and bench 500 pounds. And you're like, that really puts you in your tracks, right? Yeah.
You're like, whoa.
I was just stoked. I just benched 315 and I saw this dude literally crush 500 in a 450 incline. And I was like, holy shit. And you know what? There was nothing going on in my mind that I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to beat this dude out. I was like, you know what? Maybe in a couple years, maybe when I get a razor and I get bigger and stronger, I will be able to emulate these guys. And all the older dudes were super good about not only training with, hey, this is our training time. You need to get into our training groups. Like I've always said, if you're the strongest dude in the weight room, go find a new weight room. So for me, that was a huge deal. And just those guys taking you under their wing and, kind of helping you in that process. And then all of a sudden, you see these guys go and play in the NFL. And that was a really interesting realization for me was I was like a freshman on scout team and I was playing against these two guys, a guy named Reagan Upshaw, another guy named Dwayne Clemens. And all of a sudden those guys go out and crush it and they get both drafted in the first round, top 10 picks. And you're like, those dudes did not beat my ass that bad. And then you go see them play in the NFL and they're killing people. And then that's all of a sudden you realize you're like, oh man, maybe I could do this job. But I mean, it's pretty rare just because the physical jump, man. I mean, the difference in the NFL from 23 to 30, not that big as it is from 18 to 23. I mean, I think that's the biggest growth opportunity. And that's what's interesting with a strength coach, especially in that college environment. You guys have so much impact. I always hate whenever people want to look at NFL strength coaches as having this. I'm like, no, dude, you have the best players in the world. You could go have those guys play the snare drum for 20 minutes and they're going to get better. Really, the maturation process and the growth and all that really comes in college with the college strength coach. That's why I always think they're by far the most valuable and the most underrepresented for the impact they have. Because I mean, think about it. If you were to time box out your time, how much that you work with the players versus the actual football coaches, you got to be 3 times more time spent with these kids than the actual football coaches are.
Oh yeah, 100%. And sometimes the coaches don't understand this, which I was talking to Coach Locks about this the other day. So we're going over the schedule, and it's like, all right, strength coaches, you're going to have 2 hours for this day, right? And sometimes they don't understand. For us to have 2 hours with the whole team, that's about 10 hours of training. Whereas when you practice, to have 2 hours of practice, it's 2 hours of practice. So when you have 10 hours of training with all your different groups to get 2 hours of training in, the other piece that happens is if you do it right and you create an environment for us, like on a heavy squat day, if you're a lineman that's training at 8 a.m., those linemen are going to come back at 11 because they want to see their next group go. Like, I want to see the other guys go and squat heavy. So they come back around the weight room, and by the end of the day on those big heavy days, I mean, you got guys that are coming in here. Our weight room's small now. We'll move into a new facility in Cole here soon. But that's the interesting part, and you get to spend that time with them, and you want them to come in. You want them to be able to hang around the weight room when they're not training. You want them to be able to, come into the office and talk about stuff. And again, I think it goes back to the relationships that you create with them, and that's a direct reflection of the time that you get to spend with them.
How would you recommend a high school coach, instead of writing that kid off immediately, to help bring that kid down into a coachable position so that they can improve and eventually reach where their ego at this moment in time believes that they are?
Well, so the first thing is obviously the relationship, right? We already talked about that, making sure that that's established to do it. But the other piece is this: neutral thinking. And you heard me talk about this before. All it is it's a truth-based thinking, right? Does what you say and what you do align with what you say you want? And if it doesn't, it's your job to educate him on, well, here's what you say, here's what you put out, and here's what you tell people, but here's what you do. Okay, so if this is what you want to do and you're not aligned right now, then let me help you align with some of the habits and behaviors and some of the choices that are going to get you where you say you want to go. Otherwise, I'm going to continually point out, this is what you say and this is what you do, and they don't align. And your actions are speaking so loud right now that nobody can hear what you're saying. It's your job to educate them on that. So, again, we spend a lot of time with that. We spend a ton of time in talking about those things. I've got guys, well, we're on a voluntary period right now, and that's fine. And for various reasons, if people don't want to be here to train right now, but if you're a guy that says that you want to go to the NFL right now and you're going to want that opportunity to play and you're not training with me, you're not training with anyone else, you're not getting up early, you're not eating the things that you're supposed to eat, well, guess what I'm going to do whenever those guys get back to me is I'm going to point out where they're misaligned and what they say versus what they do. And then I'm going to point out to some of their peers where they're misaligned, because there's no pressure like peer pressure.